Hi everyone, my name's Emily, and I am an animal care attendant here at the Guelph Humane Society. I'm here at our brand new building at 190 Hamlin Creek Boulevard, and I'm going to talk to you today about what to do if you find a kitten. This season, from late spring through the summer, is what we call kitten season, because now is when cats are having most of their babies. 80% of cats are born outside. That is a lot of kittens. For example, this is Pugsley. So the easiest thing to do if you find a kitten is to call us at the GHS so we can give you specific advice and help for that kitten. The first thing, however, that we're going to want to do is assess the health and age of that kitten and determine whether or not their mom is taking care of them. It's a myth that cats will abandon their kittens if you touch them. They want to take care of their babies. However, if they smell you, they may decide to move them to somewhere safer. Mom cats are the best at taking care of their babies, so we don't want to separate them unless it's absolutely necessary. However, if a kitten is so skinny that you can feel their ribs easily, their belly is thin and empty, they're covered in ticks or fleas, or they're cold, those are signs that they are in need of immediate help because their mom is no longer taking care of them. Kittens have specific needs, and the younger they are, the harder they are to raise. Until they're 3 weeks old, kittens need to be stimulated to eliminate by dabbing with a warm, wet cloth. Until they're 5 weeks old, they need a constant source of heat because they cannot regulate their temperature on their own. Kittens need to be fed kitten milk replacer, or KMR, from a syringe or bottle. They cannot be fed cow's milk or baby formula or even puppy milk replacer. At about 4 weeks of age, they can be introduced to a canned kitten food, but most kittens aren't weaned off the KMR until they are 5 to 6 weeks. At the beginning, kittens also need to be fed every 2 hours, including throughout the night. So that leads to a lot of sleepless nights if you're raising a young kitten. So I've listed a lot of ages here, but how do you know how old the kitten you found is? One very important milestone is opening their eyes, which happens between 7 to 10 days. At 3 weeks, they get their first teeth, those incisors, little teeth at the front, followed by their canines or fangs at 4 weeks, premolars at 5 weeks, and molars at 6 weeks. Around 4 to 5 weeks, they also start to lose their blue eyes, and they start to transition to their adult eye color. Okay, hi there. So at 3 weeks, we get those first tiny teeth at the front, they're very cute ones, and then at 4 weeks, it's those big sharp fangs, the canines, and then we've got premolars coming in here at 5 weeks, and then he's still missing his molars, so that would come in at 6 weeks. His eyes are starting to change color, so they're a little murky right now. They used to be baby blue, and they're heading towards green, it looks like, but we won't know until he's about 7 weeks old. So if the kittens are under 5 weeks old, healthy, and in a safe location, we want to leave them where we are, feed mom so she doesn't move them anywhere, and monitor them until we can bring the whole family in together. If mom is friendly, that may be easy. We can just put her in a carrier with the kittens and take her inside. But if mom is too fearful of humans, then trapping her may be too stressful for her well-being or that of the kittens. If the kittens are over 5 weeks old, they're ready to eat on their own, and we want to prioritize bringing them inside so they can start socializing with humans. It is still better to bring mom in with the kittens so she can take care of them. But if mom is too scared of humans to live inside, at this point we could adopt her out to a barn after she's spayed, and then socialize the kittens in foster care. This time of year, it isn't just kitten season. It's also a really busy time for wildlife. So let's check in with our wildlife care team.
Thanks, Emily. My name's Shaela, and I'm one of the wildlife care attendants here at the Guelph Humane Society. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about wildlife and some of the calls that we often get. So we see a lot of different calls, whether that's the public that have questions about behavior for wildlife, or they're concerned that a wild animal is injured or orphaned, but a lot of the calls we've been getting recently are about fledgling birds, because it's that time of year where they're leaving the nest and learning to fly on their own, as well as a lot of calls about cottontails in nests in people's yards. So nestlings are baby birds that are still in the nest. They often have very little feathers, or they'll kind of look like little pieces of straw. They're not really fluffy yet. They might have a little fluff on their head, but they're not able to walk, and they still need to be in the nest being cared for by their parents really frequently. Fledglings are also baby birds, but they've now left the nest. They have a lot more feathers. They're still being cared for by their parents every few hours, but they'll often be hopping around on the ground, and they haven't yet learned to fly. So you'll sometimes see them sitting in your yard, but that's totally normal. They can't fly yet, and their parents are still taking care of them. So if you ever have a concern about a wild animal, maybe there's something in your yard that you think is injured or you're not sure if it's acting normally, the first thing you should always do is either call a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, which you can find a list of them on the Ministry of Natural Resources website, or you can call us at our number, which is 519-824-3091, and then we can help assess the situation before you do anything and determine what needs to happen next. So once an animal comes into our care, we can only legally keep them for 24 hours. So basically our job is to provide temporary care. We'll do an intake exam, determine what's wrong with the animal, whether it maybe needs fluid therapy, some pain meds, whether it has an injury that needs to be tended to. Then we'll start reaching out to licensed wildlife rehabilitators that we work with and determine if it can go for care. Then we'll arrange a volunteer driver to take it to that rehab center so that it can continue getting care there and hopefully be released back into the wild. A story that I was really happy to be a part of was we had a caller call about some cottontails that she had found in her yard in a little nest. She didn't know that it was there, but her dog kind of sniffed it out and she was a bit concerned about them. Cottontails actually leave their baby bunnies alone all day and just visit them about twice a day at dawn and dusk to nurse. So when you find a nest of cottontails, it often seems that maybe they're orphaned or they don't have a mom around caring for them, but it is perfectly normal behavior for them to be alone. So we were able to have the caller put some strings over the nest in a tic-tac-toe pattern, take a picture, and then monitor it overnight. And in the morning, she saw that the strings had been moved, the babies had full bellies, and that means that mom was there to visit. They were able to grow up in her yard and then go off and live their life in the wild. So here are a few of the items that we frequently use in our wildlife care program here, and they were generously donated by our community members, which is awesome. So we have these knitted nests, and these are great for baby animals, whether they're birds or mammals. It helps keep them cozy while they're in our care and while they're being transported to a rehabilitator. It's really important for baby animals that they stay warm, so we like to keep them in these knitted nests. Kind of along those lines, we also have these hot hands warmers. So again, we use these to keep our wildlife warm, and they're particularly handy when they're being transported to our rehabilitators, because that way we're not sending like our water bottles or electric heating pads that we may be able to use in the building, but that way the wildlife doesn't get cold on their journey. Then we also have Pedialyte, which has also been donated by our community members. So lots of the animals that come into our care need fluid therapy, and Pedialyte is an electrolyte that we can give them orally to help rehydrate them, and we also give it alongside any pain medications that we give just to help them metabolize it. So if you see a fawn, the first thing that you need to know is to just leave it alone. They're incredibly stressed animals. They can actually develop a condition called capture myopathy, which damages their muscles and is often fatal just from being stressed out from humans trying to handle them. So it's really important, even if you're concerned, that you don't touch them when you find them. It's perfectly normal for fawns to be curled up in a little area without their mom during the day. She leaves them there because that's where they're safest from predators and just comes back to nurse until they're old enough to walk around with her. Some things you can look for in a fawn is if their ears look super crinkled, that might be an indication that they're dehydrated, or if you see any other signs of injury, that's another thing to be concerned about. But the main message is just to leave fawns be, and if you have any questions whatsoever, you can give us a call first or call a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, and we can give you more instructions on how to assess the situation without the potential stress of handling the fawn. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that you learned something about wildlife and kittens and enjoy the rest of the Hillside Festival.